Hey everyone, Synthetic Future here. So today I want to take a look at Shaperbox by CableGuys. The intro you were just hearing is Atlas running some ghost hack drum samples being modulated by the Time Shaper by CableGuys Shaperbox. So let's start off with what is the Shaperbox and what are we going to work with today. So Shaperbox is basically like a rack module, a interface in which you can use different shapers, being time, filter, pen, volume and width in the version I'm running. But I am running version 1.0. Recently they released version 2.0. I just haven't been able to find the funds to buy the upgrade, but it mostly works the same. So what they are offering right now on their website is the Shaperbox for €98 or $99, including the time, filter, crush, that's one of the ones I don't have, pen, volume and width. Normal price for this bundle is almost €200 or just over $200. So some small difference between the version I'm running and the new version. So if you buy it right now, you'll get the new version. They introduced new ways to draw the shapes. They added an envelope mode. Right now in my version there's only an LFO mode. They added compression, extra pumping filters, fine-tuning capabilities and some other stuff that upgrades the experience. That being said, this should still be a fairly good demo to give you an idea of what Shaperbox can do. So what you are looking at right now is the Shaperbox, completely empty, not using any shapers. And if we play our drum beat, nothing special happens, of course, because nothing is active. Important to note right now is that I am separating the hi-hat from the rest, so I have the hi-hat on a separate track. So the only thing I will be manipulating is the bass and the snare. This is for the sake of the demo, to keep it easier to track the time that is actually on the transport, because with the time shaper things can get a bit weird. And that's also the first shaper I want to take a look at, the time shaper. Now, right now we are working on a 1 bar loop. You can set the length of the loop here. And this is operating single band. You can actually use it multi-band, using 3 different curves for the different bands. I'm just going to use single band for now. And if we play it back, you see it draws out the wave shapes and you have the transport moving on the top, indicating where the beat is or the transport is at that point. So what are we looking at right now? So this is our 1 beat loop, 1 bar. That's set out here. And here we have the relative time from our bar. So right now it's on 0, meaning it's playing in real time. And we can draw in curves. So let's say I want to make this go 1 beat back. I'll draw down this 1 beat. Oh. Get back up here. And what happens now is that it will play real time, jump back 1 beat, go back to real time, jump back 1 beat, and continue in real time. So in this very simple 4 on the floor example, it's not exactly 4 on the floor, by the way. In this example, it will jump back to a bass drum where a snare was playing. So we can also say I want to jump back from this point. Needs to jump back a quarter. And we get a double snare. And there are, well, close to infinite ways to fill in this grid, so you can get a whole lot of interesting modulation going on. So let's just draw in some random points. Right now I'm going to stick to the flat line tool. I'll show you what happens when you go into slopes in a little bit. So really quickly you can alter the way a beat sounds, make variations, change things up, and you also have the ability to save these patterns into MIDI. So you can actually feed MIDI into this track and jump between different preset things. So you can actually use it fairly easily as a tool to make fills. Or if you're doing live sets, you can alternate between different beats just by using a MIDI controller, which is really nice to have. As said, you can draw these flat lines, but you can also create curves. So let's make a curve, in which case we'll go into the normal mode. So this has been improved in the new version with the new pen tools, but still you can do it in version 1 as well. So let's just create some curves. So what is going to happen here? So now it will smoothly transition between real time and past playback, creating really interesting shapes. You can also make them more curved, effectively creating scratch sounds. So that's really cool. It's one way to create these scratch sounds without having to use like a DJ controller or anything. Now just to demonstrate, let's use, I think there's a preset. No, there's not. Let's do it like this. So that's a nice demonstration. If you're going down, it will slow down the time. If you're going up, it will speed up the time. And if you make this division a little bit faster, so you can create some pretty trippy sounds with just this time shaper. And the fun thing being, you can of course multiband it, so you can create a different shape for the highs and a different shape for the lows. So let's just make something really weird and awkward. Let's do something like this. This is going to be extremely experimental, but let's see what happens. You can also solo out the individual bends, so you can listen to just the low. Create some really interesting and weird effects. And you could also achieve this, of course, by chopping up your beat, rendering it out, reversing it, and all sorts of crazy editing techniques. but I would say this is probably the easiest way to get these sorts of effects in your DAW without having to resort to really crazy editing techniques, combined with the option to save it into MIDI and trigger it live. That's really powerful on its own. So this is the time shaper, but of course we have multiple shapers. And for this I am going to jump to my synthesizer because I think it demonstrates this part just a little bit better. So here we go, we have another shaper box, and this is the next shaper we are going to look at. This is the filter shaper, which shapes filters. Now this is a little less intimidating than the other shaper, because here you just have your frequency and here you have your time division. Once again, we're in a 1-beat loop and we are using a 24 dB SK low pass filter. They have different types of low pass filters you can pick from: low pass, high pass, peaks, notches, all sorts of fun stuff. And in the 2.0 version you can also use multiband on your filters, which I can't demonstrate in this version, unfortunately. So right now I'm basically using it to do the classic ducking sound. Of course you can do a whole lot more with it. So that's really cool. You can add all sorts of movement to your sound. You can change all the individual curves. You can make them pointy or smooth, which adds a whole lot of extra possibilities for your sound creating goodness. And this is the first layer of our filter, because the filter also has resonance, which can also be automated. So for this demonstration I will use a nice little triangle. You can just press the button to go to the resonance, and now we see in the background our cutoff. So we can, if we want to. So this is self-resonating, as you can hear. And if you wanted to, you can also just use the resonance. Which is probably pretty soft to hear, but it's in there. Again, this is something you could probably do in your DAW. You can just open up your automations and draw on the curves, but this is a really convenient way to create movement. And also there are a lot of presets and you can switch them on the go, so it's really convenient to quickly get things done or quickly experiment with different effects. So that's our filter shaper. We also have a bend shaper. Now this is probably where you'll need some headphones or a good stereo setup to really get the effect across. So again, it's pretty much the same concept. You can draw in your shape. Center is the sound as it is, and you can pan it left and right according to your beat automation. Again, also MIDI triggerable, so you can save your presets and use MIDI to call them up. And you have some different modes to adjust the sensitivity between left and right. Which is really cool to have. And you can also multiband this one, so you can actually say I only want the mid to jump. So it's a really powerful tool to jump around in your stereo spectrum and create movements between your left and right speaker to give some extra space to your effects. So that's a really cool little shaper. We also have a volume shaper, which is the more modern way to do side chaining, of course. And again, this is multiband, so you can use it in different parts of the sound spectrum. You can also change the band split overlap. And this gives you a lot of creative freedom to change the sound of your parts, to add movements, to add some excitement to it, instead of just having flat out. So that's really cool feature to have as well. And last and not least, we also have a width control shaper. Now for this I'm going to have to grab my nice little Johnny-onimeter or whatever it's called. So right now it's at. So there is a flanger running on this. So it's really wide sound, but we can push it down all the way to mono. If we put it behind the flanger. And this of course can also be automated, so let's take a slightly longer bar division to really get the effect across. And let's make it actually a triangle. So that's really cool. It's also very helpful for like bass sounds to just have the option to collapse it to a more mono sound in a very easy way, but also you can create movement in the width of your sound. This is also multiband, by the way, so you can, just like all the other shapers, easily set it to multiband or single band just by dragging the thingies. And that's about it for this shaper. So let's jump back to our drum loop, because it doesn't end there. Of course it doesn't. So let's quickly reset this to something a little bit more sane. There we go. Because you can also combine the shapers. To create all sorts of combinations of different shapers, and they can all run in their own time. So this is 1 bar loop, this can be a 1/4, and this can be 1 bar, 4 bars, or 1/8. They are all separated from each other in that way, and you can also change the order in which they appear. Which in this rather crazy example doesn't really matter too much, but you can definitely do that. So this is a pretty cool way to work with your sound design, to quickly experiment with variations on beats, quickly finding new ways to make your sound move. It's very intuitive, very easy, and very fast. And aside from just messing around with drawing random curves, there's also a huge library of presets, 44 pages. So just to give you a little bit of a taste of that, I'm going to use my simple drum beat, run it through some of these presets, and you'll hear how drastically it changes just by clicking through random presets. So as you can hear, this is a really powerful, playful way to get around designing different rhythms, tweaking rhythms, making stutters, scratches. You can do tape stops, you can do bends, you can do all sorts of like Leslie, like rotational stuff in a really easy to use way. And of course, with the new V2, you get even more control with a bit crusher, not a butt crusher, a bit crusher that will also be multi-band and can be automated in this way. You have envelope filters to create even more possibilities. All in all, this is one of those plugins where I would say if you're into manipulation of your sound, if you're into movement, if you're into dynamics, if you're into experimentation, definitely look into picking this one up. Especially now it's on sale, it's a really good deal to just go for it. So I'll just leave it at that. I'll do some drawing while we play this out. I hope you enjoyed the video and have a nice day.